All right, this is video number 3 in our gene mutation series, and this is called Discovery Education, this article. The title is Disease Prevention or Designer Babies. Again, you're just following along with the article and highlighting information for or against your argument. One of the most cutting-edge fields of science today is genetics. In the last century, DNA, genes, and new information about how organisms pass on traits have been discovered. This has opened many doors in science and medicine. Understanding more about how traits are passed from parent to child has been only the first step. Today, scientists and medical experts are learning to work with genes to produce desirable traits in offspring. With our increased genetic technology and capability, is it possible that we may go too far? This is a question that is being hotly debated. What is genetic profiling? Genetics determines many of a person's traits. Genes affect a person's appearance, behavior, talents, and the chances of having certain diseases. Except in the special case of identical twins, every person's genetic composition is unique. This is why no two people are exactly alike. Even identical twins aren't exactly alike either. This is because although they have the same genes, each person is then exposed to different environments and experiences that shape who they are. DNA is like a fingerprint. It can be used to identify someone. Law enforcement agencies often use DNA tests as evidence in solving crimes. DNA left at the scene of a crime can ultimately identify who did it. Geneticists are scientists who work with genes. They use genetic profiling to examine the genes that make up a person. With this information, they can make predictions about some traits, including the chance of having some genetic diseases. Sometimes parents who are expecting a child choose to have the unborn fetus genetically profiled. The doctor performing the genetic test looks for problems in the genes that can cause disease. Using these tests, it is often possible to determine whether the baby will have a serious genetic condition. What is genetic selection? For billions of years, evolution has naturally selected against certain traits that decrease a species' chances of survival, and for traits that increased it. Species change and develop through natural selection. Genetic selection technology offers the opportunity for humans to select for or against traits in a lab. But not everyone feels that this work is appropriate. People disagree about the circumstances under which the technology should be used. One possible use of genetic selection technology is in pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, also known as PGD, a type of genetic profiling. PGD is used with human embryos that develop from eggs that are fertilized in a lab outside of a woman's body. PGD helps a doctor choose which embryos to put into a woman's body to grow into one or more fetuses and eventually be born. In PGD, one of an embryo's 6 to 8 cells is taken, and the cell's DNA is examined for signs of disorders or harmful traits. If these are found, the embryo is not used. Since PGD profiling began in 1990, many parents have been able to avoid passing on genes for disease, such as Tay-Sachs disease, cystic fibrosis, sickle cell, and Cooley's anemia, and Huntington's disease to their children. Pros and cons of using genetic selection technology. Some people agree with the use of genetic selection as a means to avoid serious health issues in offspring, but many others are concerned about other possible ways it could be used. For example, clinics could begin to commonly offer genetic selection, not only to screen for harmful conditions, but also to select embryos for traits having nothing to do with disease, such as for a certain hair, eye, or skin color. Many other groups are firmly against using genetic profiling in any way, including to avoid serious health issues. They are concerned that it will lead to discrimination against people with disabilities, people who lack desired or fashionable traits, and women. Genetic selection may have unexpected long-term effects. It affects more than the one embryo that goes into the mother. When the baby grows up to have its own children, its specifically selected genes are passed on to future generations. Many groups believe the consequences of genetic selection could change the entire path of evolution for human beings. One of the most common current uses for genetic selection is to choose the child's sex, whether it'll be a girl or a boy. The gender of an embryo or a fetus can be determined using genetic methods. These methods include PGD, analysis of the fluids surrounding a developing fetus, and ultrasound examination. In some parts of the world, such as China and India, sex selection is most often used to select males. Selection of gender has caused boys to greatly outnumber girls. This population imbalance may lead to problems in the future when the children grow up and seek spouses. On one hand, genetic selection technology can be used in ways that some people think provide a desirable benefit as they try to give their children a good start in life. On the other hand, it may also be used in ways that some people think are not appropriate. The long-term effects of its use are unclear. This is one of the many examples of how society must carefully consider how to use powerful scientific technology. Okay, that is the end of video 3.